The concept of the Waldemath Moon, also known as the dark moon or Lilith, though distinct from the black moon Lilith asteroid or apogee, represents a controversial and elusive point in astrological interpretation. Named after astronomer George Waldemath, who claimed to have discovered a second satellite of Earth in the late 19th century, this dark moon is viewed by modern astrologers not as a physical rock, but as a concentrated point of shadow, repressed desires, and psychic intensity. When this enigmatic point resides in the fourth house, the angular house of home, roots, ancestry, and the private self, it creates a complex psychological landscape where the individual's foundation is built upon hidden mysteries and intense emotional depths. The shadow in the sanctuary. The fourth house represents the imum celi, IC, the lowest point of the natal chart and the roots of the personality. It is the most private sector of the life, governing one's relationship with the mother figure, the early domestic environment, and the literal or metaphorical basement of the psyche. With the Waldemath Moon here, the home is rarely just a place of rest. Instead, it becomes a site of profound emotional magnetism or haunting. There is often a sense that the family history contains secrets, unspoken traumas, or a ghost that lingers in the hallways. The individual may feel like an outsider within their own lineage, as if they are the designated keeper of the shadow for their entire family tree. This placement suggests that the sanctuary of the home is where the individual's most intense, raw, and perhaps darker instincts are processed. Ancestral karma and the maternal link. In traditional astrology, the fourth house is frequently associated with the mother or the nurturing parent. The presence of the Waldemath Moon can indicate a relationship with the mother that was characterized by an intense, unspoken psychic bond or, conversely, a sense of deep emotional abandonment. The dark moon energy here suggests a mother figure who may have been mysterious, emotionally volatile, or burdened by her own repressed desires. As a result, the individual learns early on to navigate heavy emotional atmospheres. They become hyper-aware of what is not being said at the dinner table. This creates an adult who is incredibly intuitive but may struggle with a lingering fear of being consumed by their own domestic life or by the needs of their family. The need for emotional sovereignty. For those with Waldemath in the fourth, the quest for a home is a lifelong journey. They may feel a periodic urge to purge their living space or move suddenly, driven by a need to escape a stagnant emotional frequency. There is a paradoxical desire. They crave the absolute security of a private fortress, yet they fear the vulnerability that comes with truly rooting themselves. Psychologically, this placement demands that the individual confront their inner child not through soft affirmations, but through shadow work. They must integrate the parts of themselves that feel monstrous or unacceptable, the raw anger, the primal protective instincts, and the deep-seated fears of rejection, into their private identity. When they do this, the fourth house transforms from a place of hidden ghosts into a powerhouse of psychic strength, creative and occult potential. On a more esoteric level, the Waldemath Moon in the fourth house provides a direct pipeline to the collective unconscious while in a state of solitude. These individuals often find that their best insights and creative breakthroughs occur when they are behind closed doors, late at night, or in total isolation. There is a natural affinity for the occult, depth psychology, or genealogy. They are the detectives of the soul, capable of digging through layers of history to find the truth. By honoring the dark moon's presence, they learn that true security doesn't come from a stable house or a perfect family history, but from the ability to stand comfortably in the dark and feel entirely at home within their own complex, multifaceted spirit. To expand further on the Waldemath dark moon in the fourth house, we must look at the visceral, often unsettling ways this placement manifests in the daily life and long-term psychological evolution of the individual. This is not a placement of light and airy domesticity, it is the archetype of the subterranean spring, powerful, hidden, and occasionally overwhelming. The architecture of secrecy. The fourth house acts as the literal walls of our private life. When the Waldemath Moon is stationed here, those walls are often thick, both physically and energetically. Individuals with this placement frequently feel an obsessive need for privacy. This isn't just wanting some alone time, it is a primal requirement to have a space where no other human eye can perceive them. In this private womb, the individual may engage in behaviors or interests that they would never share with the world, occult practices, deep psychological deconstruction, or simply a raw, unfiltered emotional expression that would shock their public-facing peers. The home becomes a laboratory for the soul. However, the shadow side of this is a tendency toward isolation. The individual may use their home as a fortress to keep the world out, eventually finding that they have inadvertently trapped themselves in with their own darker ruminations. The ghost in the bloodline. Beyond the immediate family, the fourth house governs the ancestors in a broad, karmic sense. Waldemath here suggests that the individual is the end of the line for certain family patterns. They are often the ones who inherit the black sheep energy or the unhealed wounds of several generations. You might find that you possess memories or emotional triggers that don't seem to belong to your own life experiences, but rather feel like echoes of a grandmother's grief or a great-grandfather's hidden rage. The Waldemath Moon acts as a psychic sponge, soaking up the dark matter of the lineage. The work of this placement is to act as a transformer, taking that heavy, ancestral lead and turning it into the gold of self-awareness. If the individual refuses to look at these family shadows, they may find their domestic life plagued by recurring bad luck or a sense of being haunted by the past. Domestic power struggles and control. There is a potent territorial aspect to Waldemath in the fourth house. This point carries a Lilith-like refusal to be dominated. In the context of the home, this can manifest as an intense need to control the domestic environment. Whether it is the decor, the lighting, or who is allowed to cross the threshold, the individual feels that if they lose control of their space, they lose control of their sanity. In partnerships, this can create tension. The partner may feel that there are no-go zones in the individual's heart or house. There is a part of the Waldemath in fourth person that remains forever unreachable, tucked away in a corner of the psyche that is reserved for the dark moon alone. Learning to allow a loved one into that basement without feeling violated is one of the greatest challenges, and eventual triumphs, of this placement. Healing through the chthonic root. To truly harness this energy, one must embrace the chthonic, underworld, nature of the fourth house. While modern society prizes bright and happy homes, the Waldemath individual finds peace in the dim and the deep. Healing for this placement often involves physical depth, living in homes with basements, thick walls, or near deep features like caves, old forests, or still water. Ritualized privacy, creating a literal shadow altar or a space where the unacceptable parts of the self are honored through art or meditation. Radical ancestry, researching the taboo parts of family history to give the dark moon a narrative to hold on to. When the Waldemath moon is integrated, the individual becomes an anchor for others. Because they are so unafraid of their own internal darkness and the ghosts of their childhood, they become the person others turn to when their own lives fall into shadow. They provide a grounding that is rare because it isn't based on superficial positivity, but on the unwavering strength of someone who has walked through their own private underworld and decided to build a home there. When the Waldemath dark moon transits your fourth house, it acts as a ghostly visitor entering the most private chamber of your life. This transit occurs roughly every 9 years, similar to the cycle of Black Moon Lilith, and marks a period where the subterranean currents of your domestic life and inner security are pulled to the surface. While a natal placement is a permanent fixture of your personality, the transit is a temporary, intense window of psychic excavation. The unearthing of domestic secrets. During this transit, the physical structure of the home often begins to mirror the psychological state. You may find yourself suddenly noticing the shadows in your living space, literally and figuratively. This is a time when long-hidden family secrets, ancestral patterns, or repressed grievances between relatives may emerge. The Waldemath transit doesn't bring these things up for casual conversation, it brings them up with a demand for total honesty. If there has been a smear on the lens regarding how you view your upbringing or your role within the family, this transit wipes it away, often through a moment of uncomfortable clarity or a domestic crisis that forces you to look at the foundations you've built. Emotional exile in the sanctuary. The fourth house is where we usually go to feel safe. However, as Waldemath moves through this sector, that sense of safety can become compromised. You might feel like an outsider in your own home or experience a sudden, inexplicable urge to leave your current environment. This transit often triggers a rebellion against the roots. You may feel a deep-seated rage toward traditional family roles or societal expectations of homemaking. It is common during this period to reject family traditions that feel suffocating or dishonest. Feel a psychic coldness toward those you usually feel closest to, as you prioritize your own emotional sovereignty. Experience hauntings, not necessarily by spirits, but by the emotional residue of the past that you haven't yet processed. The transformation of the inner mother. Because the fourth house governs nurturing, this transit heavily impacts your ability to mother yourself. If you have been relying on external sources for security, such as a partner's approval or a specific bank balance, Waldemath will temporarily cut those emotional lifelines. The goal of this transit is to force you into the darkness of your own core so that you can find the light within yourself. It is a period of emotional self-sufficiency. You are being asked to become your own sanctuary. By the time the transit concludes, the house of your psyche is often remodeled. You may have discarded the heavy furniture of old traumas and made room for a more authentic, albeit more complex, version of home. Navigating the shadow. Physically, this transit can manifest as a desire to live in isolation or a sudden fascination with the history of the land you live on. You may find yourself cleaning out basements, attics, and junk drawers, not just for tidiness, but as a ritualistic purging of the past. The key to navigating a Waldemath transit in the fourth house is non-resistance. If feelings of exile, anger, or deep sadness arise, they are simply the ghosts that have been living in your foundation finally making their exit. By allowing the dark moon to do its work, you transform your home from a place of mere shelter into a fortress of genuine, unshakable power. When the Waldemath dark moon forms a conjunction with a natal planet or angle in the fourth house, the shadow is no longer a background hum, it becomes an active, pulsating force. A conjunction is the most potent of all aspects. It is a fusion of energies where the dark moon's primal, uncompromising nature merges with the function of the planet it touches. In the subterranean landscape of the fourth house, these conjunctions act like a psychological eclipse, momentarily darkening the function of the planet to reveal its most raw, unvarnished essence. Conjunction with the Imam Sealy, IC. The IC is the very bottom of the chart, the root system of the soul. When Waldemath conjoins the IC, the individual's entire sense of existence is anchored in the dark. This isn't necessarily a negative, it produces a person of immense psychic gravity. However, it often indicates a childhood that felt like a secret or a life where the true self is hidden behind layers of protective armor. The individual doesn't just have secrets, they are a secret. The challenge here is to find a way to belong to the world without feeling that they have betrayed their private, dark roots. Conjunction with the moon, the primal mother. This is perhaps the most intense of all Waldemath placements. The moon represents our emotional needs and our literal mother. Waldemath represents the rejected or wild feminine. When they conjoin in the fourth house, the emotional life is characterized by extreme cycles of purging and rebirth. The relationship with the mother may have been profoundly entangled, involving a sense of psychic osmosis where the child felt the mother's repressed pain as their own. As an adult, this person possesses a witch-like intuition but may struggle with a bottomless emotional hunger that no amount of domestic security can fill. They must learn that their darkness is actually their greatest source of nurturing power. Conjunction with Sun or Mars, the internal fire. If Waldemath conjoins the Sun in the fourth, the individual's identity is inextricably linked to the hidden. They may feel they only truly exist when they are alone or engaged in private, deep-reaching work. There is a black sun quality here, a charismatic but formidable presence that radiates from the private life outward. If it conjoins Mars, the home becomes a site of intense, often repressed aggression or drive. The individual may have grown up in a household where anger was a ghost in the room, never spoken of, but always felt. This conjunction demands that the individual learns to use their warrior energy to protect their private boundaries rather than turning that fire inward on themselves or their family members. Conjunction with Saturn, the heavy foundation. When the dark moon meets the planet of structure and karma in the fourth house, the domestic life feels like a heavy responsibility. There is often a coldness or a sense of great age to the home life. The individual may feel burdened by ancestral debts or a feeling that they must be the adult in a family of emotional children. This conjunction creates an incredible resilience. These people can survive emotional winters that would break others. The task here is to soften the walls of the heart. Saturn wants to build a prison for protection, Waldemath wants to roam free in the dark. The synthesis is building a home that is both secure and spiritually wild. The alchemy of fusion. In any fourth house conjunction, Waldemath acts as a reductive agent. It strips away the polite, socially acceptable layers of the conjoined planet. If it conjoins Venus, love becomes a matter of life or death soul bonding. If it conjoins Mercury, the mind becomes obsessed with the unspoken and the cryptic. The beauty of these conjunctions lies in their authenticity. There is no room for small talk or superficiality in the fourth house when the dark moon is involved. It forces an alchemical marriage between the planet's function and the raw power of the unconscious. The individual becomes a gatekeeper of the deep, standing at the threshold where the personal family history meets the vast, dark ocean of the collective soul. Subscribe, like, and share.